Hello, this is Alan Wheeler, and it's been a few days since I made a video. And in the interim, I had a question come to my mind about altered states and magic. This is likely to be a short video as I'm not an expert in magic other than magic tricks. But I think we all have the right to ask questions, and so that's what my tarot readings are all about. The better the question, the better the reading tends to be. I've been introducing objects from my altar in many of the previous videos, so I will introduce this crystal apple, and it's just an item that we brought back from China when I was teaching English there. When we moved back to the States, this was something that came back with us, and it looks like it would be good for scrying if I knew more about that. But being a memory of China and spiritual-esque, it's made it to my altar, although I don't know all its uses yet, like many things in my spiritual life. So, by way of introduction, I want to talk about altered states in magic, and I, for the life of me, can't remember what video I saw this on as I was clicking around the many opportunities on YouTube, but in one part of one video, the presenter mentioned that the tools, such as knives or cauldrons or crystals, that are used in magic are, for the real purpose is to put the participant into an altered state. And so I wanted to think about that. He also said that going into nature, one of the purposes is to reach that altered state, whether it's in the moonlit forest or by the flowing river, by the sea, looking at the stars at night, establishes this altered state that takes us out of ourselves a bit while being grounded, and maybe similarly images and symbols, idols or mandalas, and things that are used to take us into an altered state as part of the magic work. Because he claimed magic is really about transformation of the practitioner. So let me depart from what he was saying, although I added a few things to his list, such as chanting and mantras, music, incense, that I have burning here, candles, the creating of sacred space, casting circles and things. Although he didn't mention them, arguably that's also creating room for that altered state of consciousness, whether going into the unconscious realm or a transcendental spiritual realm. So I think he was right in the modern sense. Many modern approaches that I've seen to magic focus on the intention, the will of the practitioner. And so that altered state would be very important for that. I think the ancient way involves more animism. That is, that the crystals and the stones and the trees would really have spirits in them, that we would really be tuning in to deity or the spiritual realm. in those altered states. But this is just dabbling, right? So I have more questions than answers, and I turn to the Archeon Tarot, a beautiful new deck that I've acquired this morning, and I drew one obsidian rune and 3 cards and sat with them earlier. And it didn't take very long to understand the answer coming through, but more than I could probably have come up with on pulling them instantly in a video recording. So, what about these altered states? What is there about them to think about? What do they produce? What do they accomplish? What is their purpose? Is it the ancient mindset, or the modern, or a combination? So, the rune that I drew was very appropriate to my way of thinking. Laguz, which can mean lake or water flowing. Very feminine energy, I think. And that's, to me, that's very appropriate to the shamanic trance, that flow that we can get into whether working with sigils or chanting mantras. So that was a good focal point that puts us in that flow, in that open state, that receptive state. The first card I drew was Death, and it's very not just the lighting is dim, but the card itself is very darkly drawn. Yet you can see the black robes and the white skull. Along the top you can see that scythe of the traditional death figure, and maybe some light reflected in the sky behind. Very, very dark, the Death card. And this card made me think that it is a kind of death. We're dying to the conscious realm, we're dying to some parts of ourselves in those altered states. But perhaps in the working of magic, there's also letting go of what no longer serves, and releasing that. And to me, sometimes the Death card can mean that process of initiation when you begin a new path. Perhaps you die to the old. The old is gone. The new has come. And but rather than focusing too much on the new, the transition, which might be more in other cards, it's really the dying, the process of dying to that old and letting go of that old. And so that may be something that altered state really accomplishes, especially maybe in some kind of working. Now the next card I pulled shocked me, because earlier today I had a very transcendental experience looking at a picture of the same card online. And so when it showed up, I returned to I was actually in an altered state while doing the reading on altered states. So it was this beautiful card from the Archeon Tarot, the Judgment card. And it's hard to see the trumpets. You can see there pretty clearly. It's hard to see that this angel is holding a sword, though. And for anyone who knows the imagery from the book of Revelation, and the swinging of the sword, that will be clear, and that ties in very nicely with the death card, doesn't it? And so the old is gone, and here is the new coming, and perhaps rising out of that as the consciousness sinks down. The new has come, and as that is cut, the old is cut off. There's an openness to the new thoughts or the new working. Now, I had serendipitously or synchronistically, I had a couple experiences this week where this really played out. My wife found me doing 2 times. She found me doing things she doesn't like too much, and this actually brought about some good conversations and a closer walk with my wife this week. But it was due to some walks that I did and some meditations almost at a crossroads. And so the judgment, this things coming to light with her, brought about leaving some old feelings behind, and allowed us to really connect and come to a better understanding. Without going into more details, but she's in much more conservative place than I am spiritually right now. But we were able to, in one case, talk about that more. That's just an illustration that I see in these cards, but the question was about the altered states. But I think this can be the effectiveness of them. The last card I drew was the Hanged Man, and it's interesting. I've been working with or researching, listening for or to the Morrigan recently, and 2 crows appear on this card. Also the sword, this looks like a sword to me, and I read it as the sword from the previous card in a way, the judgment, that clear word, or something coming to light there. And rather than immediate action, the figure here is suspended there in the almost fiery light, but there seems to be a moon behind. And that suspension, I think, is the place of trance, of altered state. And I think that's what's required, rather than forcing the will upon the universe. This receptive, brought in again by the Laguz rune, this flow, and being in tune with what's happening in the real world, in the universe, in a way similar maybe to how Freya was said to weave. She could see fate at work and weave things together, rather than forcing, as we would with physical technology, and make things happen. And so that altered state helps allow for that flow. And whether it's in the modern sense of finding how intention fits with scientific determinism or something, or whether it's in the more ancient sense of tuning in with what the spirits are doing. Or maybe those are two ways of describing the same thing, or two things happening simultaneously. Um, that suspension is certainly a good picture of the altered state, the trance state. Well, I've gone beyond my knowledge in making this video, but please comment if you have other ideas, and I'll stop here. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I hope you feel connection with real friends and family, also online community, as well as connection on your spiritual path, whatever that may be. Take care.